Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. JC's in the chat. Happy Monday, all. Happy Monday to you as well. Mario's here. Morning. I may be in Mexico, but finally some tacos from Washington. Good morning to you. Yes, we do have a market rally today from some headlines this morning and on Friday. It looks like the tensions and the war is de-escalating, and it's sending the QQQ up over 2% as we were opening up here today for the live stream. SPY is up over 2% as well. Dow up 2%. And wow, the Russell is up about 3.5% as we're starting here. And JC said, and it's not even Tuesday. Yeah, no Taco Tuesday. Although maybe we'll get back-to-back tacos. We will have Taco Tuesday. And W saying, haha. It's interesting because we were just talking about in the newsletter on Sunday, the one that just came out, about how there could be a relief rally brewing with how negative a lot of the market indicators had gotten. A lot of people were positioning fully bearishly. So typically the market likes to yin and yang in the opposite of how people would like. So we are seeing a rally here today. The perm hedge market is still intact though, at least from when I checked earlier. Yeah, the SPY net option sentiment is still at 0, QQQ at 4, just updated to 5, but same levels that they have been at. And then the XLI is at 15 and XLK at 19. So all of the net options metrics that we were looking at for the overall market still in the bearish level. So hedges remain in place, at least for now, but it is good to see some stocks back bouncing back. Let's take a look at the Magnificent Seven. We usually do this later on, but with how much the market is moving, you see Apple up almost 2%, Amazon up over 3%, Google up 1%, Tesla up over 4%, Meta, where's Meta? Meta up over 2%, Microsoft 1%, and let's look at Nvidia up over 3%. And we have to talk about SMCI later on in the stream. Oh my gosh, we got a lot of great topics for today. Wow, what a story that came out for SMCI last week. I don't know if you guys caught wind of that, but some crazy things going on with the co-founder or ex-co-founder. Well, no, I think you're always a co-founder if you're a co-founder of Supermicro, smuggling NVIDIA chips into China. Crazy details about the story, the lengths at which he went to facilitate this, and it wrecked SMCI stock on Friday, which I think ended the day down over 30%. So pretty crazy to see that happen with them. But we'll probably start the stream today when George gets in here talking about the Trump comments that we're getting, the tweets, the updates about the war, how it's affecting the market. It looks like there's going to be at least a 5-day pause on any kind of strikes on energy or infrastructure, but because of talks going on between the USA and Iran, but Iran immediately refuted it. So it's a weird time. You never know what's the truth. But it is causing the markets to rally. What isn't rallying, and let's see how it's doing actually, which I think gold was down 10% earlier today. Okay, it's come all the way back to nearly flat on the day, but it was so strong for so long. It's going to be interesting now. Is gold becoming the hedge that it hadn't been with all of the momentum that was kind of priced in at the point when it was peaking? I see Nick is in the chat as well. Hi all, it's been a minute. Welcome back. Good to have you here. It has been a minute. I'm happy you are able to join today. Good to see you. So we'll talk about gold a little bit. Then I have a stat about GLP-1s coming out of JP Morgan and their effect on the food industry. And I have noticed some food companies are getting absolutely wrecked. Two specifically are Wendy's, which is, we talk about the perma hedge of the overall markets in our net option sentiment. I think Wendy's signals in Prospero have been negative basically the whole time I've ever been looking at them, and they are down 12% year to date now, 52% in the past year, 64% in the past 5 years. So Wendy's stock not doing great. But another one that caught my attention was actually, let me see, where is it? Jack in the Box, which in the past year is now down 62%, down 41% year to date alone, down 90+% in the past 5 years. So I don't know if we have anybody tuning in from the West Coast. I'm over here in New Jersey, so I don't have any Jack in the Boxes near me. But if you've been to your local Jack in the Box recently, is it a ghost town? What's going on with that company? But maybe it's the effect of the GLP-1s. Nobody's going to fast food places anymore. JC, oh no, let's start with Nick. Nick said, I saw the overnight open and went to sleep ready to sell my puts and then woke up with a sad face. Things can change in the blink of an eye with these headlines coming out, right? It is such a headline driven market. Hard to gauge this market. Indexes have fallen below 200-day SMA, which is usually a rebound signal, at least a test of it, right? Taco out here. I said NWJC, In and Out, the West Coast. In and Out, another spot I've never been to, which I got to get to sometime soon. Yeah, I hear a lot of good things about In and Out. All right, let's move on. Our next story is this is a story, we've covered how the prediction markets are kind of taking over, and we've even used some of their pricing in of events and probabilities on the streams for different things. It looks like they may be starting to face some political pressure. I thought this might happen with all of the power that it seems like the mega gambling companies that are being affected by the businesses being stolen essentially. And I think there was like either no regulation or less regulation, or it was just a gray area for the time being. So there's being a bipartisan bill proposed to get rid of these Kalshi Polymarket platforms being able to offer sports betting, casino style betting. So it was causing DraftKings and Flutter Entertainment and Penn Gaming all to pop this morning. Let's see if DraftKings is how they're doing now. They're still up 3.5%. They were up almost 10% at one point this morning. These stocks have not done great, the sports betting, gambling companies. So interesting to see if there's any follow through with this, and then if that would be a bullish outcome for the DraftKings, Flutter Entertainment, which is FanDuel, maybe even I guess it would kind of affect Robinhood negatively, which we do have another story about. But yeah, so we'll have to get George's gauge on that. And then another, this is a throwback product coming back into the zeitgeist. By popular demand, US vinyl sales topped $1 billion last year for the first time since 1983. And I just saw this and I was like, I wanted to bring it up because I'm kind of beating the drum on this. I think there might be a little anti AI type of sentiment, and maybe this is a sign from consumers that they're going to places where the physical products, the old time products before the technology. I don't know. I think there's a string to be pulled there, and I'm going to continue on this thread as I get stories up like that I can update about it. But I think this is another case and sign that people might be a little bit um, wanting to turn back the clock or just not feeling great about AI right now. Vinyl comebacks make us OGs happy. I can honestly say I have never owned a vinyl. Actually, I don't even know what a vinyl is. Is a vinyl a record player or is it something different completely? I have no idea. So before my time, my music listening started with the iPod. So that's as far back as I go in terms of that. Actually, I guess CDs were before the iPod, so I had a CD player. I guess I could start there. Also heard they want to eliminate geopolitical on prediction markets, geopolitics on prediction markets. Interesting. So those companies could be in a world of trouble if this all comes to fruition. NW goes back to records. I said we have another story about Robinhood. So this one was the worst performing stock so far in 2026 in the S&P 500, and it is actually Robinhood, which is crazy because it was such a high flyer, so much momentum, and the signals were great behind it in Prospero for 2025. But maybe it's a victim of its own success, and all those gains happening so quickly, kind of weighing on the stock now. Um, Checking it out in Prospero at this point, 77 upside, 63 net option sentiment, and the trends are actually heading in the wrong directions for net option sentiment. A few weeks ago it was up in the mid 80s. Now it's down to 70 or 63. Upside, same thing. It was in the mid 80s in the back of the trend and now going downward. So bring that back up, highlighting Robinhood one more time. We'll see if there's any buy the dips there. And then last but not least, we have the Discord questions from last week that we didn't get to, which we will bring up today, which is when are the trade alerts expected to move out of early access into full release, and highlighting booking.com, a 25-to-1 April stock split. And is it a buy before or after? and then maybe get George's opinions on stock splits overall, if they are typically, if he'd like to buy going into them or wait for them to occur, and how he thinks about them. And as always, we've had over 200 people tuning in already. If you guys have any questions and you want us to answer, and I just went through the list of topics we got, and something you want to hear was not on there, feel free to comment it in the chat. If you're watching on Twitter, YouTube, doesn't matter. We get them both. So leave it in the chat. We'll be happy to address them all. Be sure to like the live stream, follow, subscribe, follow if you're on Twitter, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Appreciate you all being here today. Now let's take a look around the markets, and we'll see if we can highlight anything that is moving bigly as we start the stream. Interesting to see SMCI is actually up 6% now after dipping so much on Friday. So I cannot imagine a world where SMCI comes back and has success as a company after the story we're going to go through on the stream, but we shall see. And W said, unrelated, got a celebrity gossip on actress just named her baby Prospero. So maybe that kid gets the paid newsletters for free. Wait a second, a Prospero baby? Which celebrity? They're about to be the spokesperson of Prospero for sure. That's funny. All right, let's take a look at the markets. Interesting, Home Depot is up over 4% today. Not often you see a company like that making that big of a move when there's not like, an earnings or anything like that. It was Kat Graham. Interesting. Kat Graham, email George@Prospero.ai. Maybe there's a connection we can make. Actually, what we should check on also is USO. Oil fund, United States Oil Fund. Oh my goodness, yeah, it's down over 11% today. So it looks like gas prices might be heading downward after we'll see if this can stick. Wow, I'm surprised to see it moving that much over this just 5-day pause headline of any kind of military actions on energy or infrastructure for energy. We'll see if it can break down below that $100 level. That would be definitely good for the market if oil was able to drop. And even as we're talking now, the markets are kind of edging higher overall. We'll see how sustainable this rally can be. If it's a 1 or 2 day pop, or if it's something bigger, maybe we start making our way back to all-time highs pretty soon. Yeah, things are heading in the right direction today for sure. A-Lab, a stock that's looked great on Prospero from time to time, up 7% now. Let's see how like the NeoCloud AI infrastructure stocks are doing. So we have NBIS is up just under 2%. SNDK is up just under 3%. Iron, which George has liked a lot recently, up over 6% today, making a big move. Also, I feel like Bitcoin has been honestly a pretty good indicator of market sentiment and kind of like a leading one. Bitcoin is up almost 5% today. Wow. At 71,000. I wonder if the Bitcoin bottom can officially be declared. Maybe if we have time at the end, we'll ask George about that. Now that it's kind of trended upward recently, and let's see, how long did it was down there for about like 4 or 5 weeks near that like low to mid 60K level, and it's bounced around and now starting to trend higher. So wonder if he's ready to stamp the flag in the official Bitcoin bottom. Maybe we could ask him if there's a market bottom too. I doubt he will say that about the market. The market hasn't dropped nearly as much, so I don't think he'd be as confident in stating that. But we can try. Let's see if anything else is moving big here. Wow, Palantir up 5%. Palantir stock is an interesting one. Now I feel like it's in like no man's land after eclipsing $200 per share, and then Michael Burry coming out against it, and all of the AI pullback and valuation concerns, and now it is up off the lows of like where did it get down to 128? So it's up about 15%, 20% or so from there. But yeah, a lot of room to the upward. Still high valuation, kind of a prove it stock, it seems like at this point. We could check back in on ASTS and LEU. Let's see. ASTS just barely in the green today, still trading over $90 per share. and LEU. These were the two Prospero favorites heading into 2026. LEU is up over 4%, now at $194 per share. And it's been bouncing around. It's made, I think, a triple touch of like 185-ish per share. If the market is approaching a low, maybe time for some dumpster diving. Yes, JC, the ones that get hit the hardest bounce back the most, right? When the market gets some momentum. So maybe for our Wednesday stream, if we continue to see this momentum sticking around, the bullish momentum, we will have to do your favorite segment and go a little dumpster diving, see what stocks are down the most so far this year and which have the most potential to recover. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you here. Everybody in the chat is in a great mood today, George, with the market being up. We were looking at it before. Up, everything's up over 2%, still going higher at this point. I mean, the Russell is getting close to up 4% on the day. We're seeing some crazy moves here, all off a simple headline of this morning of a de-escalation of tensions. So Trump made a truth or tweet about how there's going to be a 5-day pause on any military strikes against power plants and energy infrastructure in Iran because the talks are going well. It was interesting that like immediately following up on this, Iran kind of said the opposite and said there's no talks going on and like which they've done every time Trump has done something, it seems like. So I don't know if the market really trusts either side completely when they say something, but I guess they trust Trump more with the way the indices are bouncing today. Also, after our newsletter was posted yesterday, and we were signaling that a relief rally could be brewing, and then you see it already today. Do you think this is like a 1 or 2 day bounce? Are you feeling better overall about the markets going forward? And any positioning changes from you, seeing how quickly the market can rebound from just one headline?
I mean, I don't know at this point. I think Iran seems pretty locked in terms of like there's nothing that they're saying that doesn't seem that they want to inflict a lot more pain on the US and Israel and some other countries they associate with them now. There was a missile launched near a base, I believe, in the ocean somewhere, that also said that they had capacity to reach a lot of cities in Europe, Paris, London. I think they're a lot more prepared for this than seemingly anyone, including our vaunted intelligence systems, seem to think. And to that end, like if they just give up, like what's to stop us from and they've made this point, in another year just going and killing their whole senior leadership again? Like, this is something that is as old as time. If you have leverage in a war, and you were the one attacked, you're going to try to inflict maximum damage on the attacker. And one of the things that's coming up, and I think the reason that Trump backed off, is there was talk, he kind of had to, because there was talk of letting only the ships through that would transact in yuan and not US dollars. And there's been a lot of talk of the petrodollar, and that being a reason to attack Venezuela. And if you take away, and just so people know, the petrodollar is, the US currency isn't really backed by anything. But for a long time now, and with agreements we made decades ago, oil has been transacted in dollars. So the price of oil is a stabilization of the US dollar and an inflation of the value of the US dollar. So it actually made sense from an economic perspective why they would attack Venezuela. However else someone might feel about it, from an economic perspective, it made sense because they were talking about switching over to the yuan. Now, if you look at what came back and forth between Iran and the US, again, the power plant threat. Iran has 300 power plants, one of them making up like a maximum of 3%. So they've also been preparing for this particular instance. And who knows, much like the missile bunkers that they have, there could be a lot of underground power infrastructure that we're not even aware of. So that's where I'm not sure why the market is getting excited, right? Because Iran had the US backed into a corner when it was starting to say, like, oh, well, we're not going to keep the strait closed. We're actually just going to let through any ships that are willing to switch from the petrodollar, which is a really smart move on their part. And we on this stream kind of we're all over the place in terms of how, it's tough to cover the Trump regime for a variety of reasons. But in this case, I will say it does look like the US has more of a reason to want peace than Iran. Like, Iran's already lost a lot of its senior leadership. The rest is underground. They have a lot of these ways of striking assets valuable to us, our allies, our economic interests. And we don't have nearly as many left if you think about it, because they can strike, they've struck Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar. They can actually, on an ongoing basis, inflict a lot more economic damage to us than we can to them. So while you can say, like, I don't know, maybe they just don't want, it's quite possible that they just don't want any war. There's acceptable terms, and they're just jockeying for a position, right, to use the other side. But when I look at this, I think Trump is getting a lot of pressure, even from his own party, has a lot more reason to say that things are getting better and peace is soon, than Iran does. And they're not really acting like people that want peace at all. So I don't, like, from that perspective, this rally, like, I would be scared if I was anyone about this rally, because we've just gotten no indication in terms of how Iran is positioned and what they're saying. And then, I would honestly say what they're saying about the way they were attacked and not being able to trust that any peace they would get right now would be a lasting peace. To me, that side all makes a lot more sense than the side we're hearing from the US.
We've covered the oil impacts and rising in price from this, but Maverick just brought up that fertilizer prices have nearly gone up 100% in America and Europe from this as well, leading to higher food prices most likely. With the rising in price of oil and food, like you were saying, Trump and the administration, USA, backed into a corner. So would that have you believe that they will do everything in their power to end and wrap this up as quickly as possible, which would be probably beneficial for the market? Or are they committed too far already, and they're like, the cleanness of exit will not be possible? Or what do you think?
Well, it's hard, right? Because this is the same thing that, and this is like, for those that don't know the history of like Iran and Afghanistan, like this has been going on for centuries. Western powers coming in, trying to dominate them, and never being able to control these countries because they go to the mountains, they don't fight in a traditional way. So that's what makes this like even more mind numbing to me. And I don't even understand it for Israel at this point because their Iron Dome is starting to break down. I don't understand it from any, like, I don't know if it's just bravado, like, but this is I've taken history on this, and they have continually, and they're quite competent. By the way, they take pride, both of those countries historically, in the idea that they can repel these foreign powers, and they will stick it out to the end, and they don't mind the losses that they suffer. That's the problem here. Like traditionally, like the way the US and a lot of Western industrial powers get peace is they do exactly what Iran is doing to us, right? They hit too many of your sites, they make you pay economically, and they bring you to the table that way because of your country stability. But if you look on the other side, I think a big headline this weekend was that we actually lifted sanctions on Iranian oil already in the markets because that was a way to lower the prices, right? If that doesn't tell you who's winning this war economically, I'm not sure what will. Um, and so yeah, it's a it's a tough problem. Um, it's a real tough problem to look at right now. And I'm a little sick. That's why the shirt, right? I think that has more to do with the markets than the shirt. I've had this like lingering, yeah, oil sanctions lifted against Russia too. To me, you don't you look at what, and I agree with you, Maverick. Um he's talking about the fall of the British Empire. And it was kind of like in that sense, it was like kind of people look at it as the fall going backwards, but it was a similar conflict that really made less and less sense as it went on, and they kind of lost a stalemate. Um, and yeah, like so back to the thread I was pulling, if you can't like push a country into submission economically like we normally do because they still have their oil going through. They don't seem to care about the infrastructure we've already hit. They have distributed infrastructure on power plants, but whatever power, like the other side is like Israel has one of their power plants is 20% of the power, right? They've already shown in a neighborhood that they could break through the Iron Dome. This is kind of where we talk about like the way Iran is set up for this guerrilla warfare. Like Western powers always seem to overestimate the power of like military might overall. But Iran, especially with these underground missiles, like the way they actually work, and there's these huge missile bunkers where people can just go, and it's not as if they have like, they have some electronic ones, but people are just going with launchers, launching these missiles from they've been ready for this for a long time.
Uh-oh, we lost George. He was cooking too. That was a great coverage of what's going on at the current moment. My follow-up for George. Oh, he's back already, I think.
In there. Um,
Welcome back.
but yeah, it's again, um, it just shows the thing again, whether it's economically, power, infrastructure, whatever, they seem to be in a better position to inflict damage on the coalition fighting them than we do against them, because they don't, like, that's the thing, like that's the thing that we've, especially if you think about in like we can pull it back for a second and look at what they were doing to their own people, which was, I think, a reason to put pressure on them, sanction, do it with a world coalition the way we were doing it. But now we're not really acting with a world coalition, which is never the smart way to do it. They've now, as we talked about earlier, frightened a lot of Europe with their countermeasures. Um, and yeah, it's that is the base problem. I do think we could blow up all the power plants, and it might cause a lot of suffering for their people, but I think that's acceptable. Like, I think that's acceptable to a lot of people in power, and the damage they can inflict. And that's why I think we backed off today. The damage they can inflict in return to power infrastructure, to energy prices, to all that stuff. I do not think that's acceptable for us. So, like, I think that's the challenge. Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that as much as the Trump administration might want to make peace right now, I'm not sure there's any. I mean, like, I'm only like half joking, but I feel like a condition of the surrender here could be us like handing over some nuclear missiles. Just being like, you got to promise not to use them on anyone. But like, if that's what's gonna settle it, we'll give you a few, no program, you just get 3, and you better use them wisely. Like, I honestly feel like the way this is going, like, they might actually get, if there is peace, we might actually end up in a worse situation on our negotiating points than we had before. And let's keep in mind, like, we haven't even said the most ridiculous part about this. Yeah, that's a scary thought, Maverick. You want to throw that up? um, the scariest part about all of this is that we actually killed the moderate Ayatollah that was always encouraging, peace talks and mediation. Like, his son, the story with his son was that he couldn't take over because he was too extreme. And that's what we do with this. We've now put the extreme person in charge. And that's the meta story about this. That's absolutely insane. That, like, part of what might ultimately be our problem here is that we have now actually put in charge a man that does not want a moderate solution, that I think wants to make Western powers pay as much as possible, no matter the cost to his people. And like, if this is any indication, like, if their oil keeps on getting through, like, it's not going to be as a severe of an economic impact. And a lot of these places have huge, sovereign wealth funds. They don't have debt, like we do. It's just.
So the question I would have for you is, like, so then why is the market reacting so bullishly? And would you be selling positions, putting on more hedges? Could it be that the market is reacting so positively because, we talk, there's like a Fed put, this is the Trump put, he's showing his hand, where you're kind of highlighting like all the economic troubles that could arise from this. But maybe the market is reading through that and saying Trump will not allow that. Like, he's shown that he will back off before that occurs. So maybe the market is kind of thinking that the worst case outcomes are off the table at this point.
I think the market, my read on that is the market, and then like a lot of momentum traders follow retail. I think there's more retail optimism today, and you see like a lot of the retail names going up. I do not share their optimism, and I would be very cautious. But I mean, look, it could rally for a few days, and Trump could say we're getting closer, we're zeroing in. But and you know what? We might reach a weird like kind of detente where the war isn't really over. Like ships just like we stop attacking them and and ships just start going and there's no guarantee of peace and you know we don't know if our ships are totally safe and they might not be because we might not have official peace but like other ships of like pretty much anyone that isn't us or Israel or like maybe how they feel about the betrayers, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait. I don't know. I just don't like we've talked through the whole thing. And the more I think about it, the more I talk through it, the more I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense as the country that was attacked to call off the dogs. Yeah, I mean, but here's the problem with the ground war. Like, we've tried, like, for a long time, people have tried ground wars in these places, and they're just hidden in the mountains. Like, this is like, um, before there was Vietnam, there was, you know, Russia in Afghanistan, right? I believe. Well, it doesn't matter. I think it was. I think that was like the 1900s. A little cloudy today. But that's where we financed the Taliban, and we gave them weapons, and they just fought off Russia because they know how to hide in. It's the same kind of thing. They're not fighting. We could want to fight a ground war, but we are going to face much larger losses than them because they're digging holes and having their secret missile silos. And make no mistake about it, right? Like, whereas, you know, Afghanistan, Vietnam, a lot of them were being armed by other countries. And by the way, there's no way that China and Russia aren't going to be arming Iran beyond what they have. But Iran is a much richer country than those other places when that happened. And they've clearly been preparing themselves for this. If they've been preparing themselves for this kind of war, I think they're preparing themselves for a ground war. And I think it is going to look at the way it's being talked about, right? People are already talking about a draft, right? We've already heard people not say there's a draft. Caroline Levitt's talked about it. Trump, in terms of like not denying there would be a draft. Trump is. So, I mean, God, I hope we're not going into a ground war. What do you think the limit? I'm 40. Is that too
You
old to be
might, I
drafted?
was about to say, you might not see me on the streams anymore, guys. By the
Yeah,
way, I've said it
Jesus.
before, but my brother is active military in the Marines right now. So I would absolutely hate to see any kind of troops be sent over there. It would be, it would just be terrible. So,
I mean, the good news is um, I think if there was a ground war, um, the Republicans would just get slaughtered in the midterms, and Trump might get removed. I mean, they probably get slaughtered enough. Um, like I think there's a lot of like this is something where a lot of the center went towards Trump in the last election, and I think this would swing pretty much all the center, probably even the center right, towards voting against him in the midterms. So the optimist take is even if we go that direction, um, it won't be like a years long war. But I got to tell you, I was like talking to someone, Brent, who might be on this. And I was just saying, like, this actually, it just makes me really sad for like the future of retail investing and the future of the communities we're trying to serve at Prospero, because losing the petrodollar, the way this is kind of impacting, um the way this could impact you know oil prices, like a squeeze, oil prices, food prices, a squeeze on people's dollars. Um, it's going to really hurt their ability to, um, build wealth, have investable dollars, and that's just actually the saddest part of this for me, because I think we were heading in a really, really good direction. Um, in terms of the next, there was going to be a correction, but I think the next few years, and the dollars behind AI, and the potential for like kind of like a new golden age of technology for the US. I think even that is under jeopardy, because like the stock market is the um it's how these companies expand. You get your stock price goes up, you issue shares. It's a big way that we continue the technological dominance. But, even this, I think there was already like trillions of dollars in promises for the US economy removed from the Middle East. Devaluing the dollar, like could accelerate the unwinding of the yen carry trade. Um, there's a lot of things, and I don't want to say what NW said, but you can look in the chat and maybe find it if you want. But to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Everything else is just like, I just like look at this and I'm at a loss.
This would make perfect sense of everything you're discussing on the streams today as to why we've seen a 0 net option sentiment reading for the SPY. Like there's just so many reasons to be nervous about the overall market.
Since
Sounds like.
before the war, like we were kind of wondering about it, but I think everybody knew this was coming.
Mm-hmm. In hindsight, it makes it make a lot more sense, because I feel like investors who used Prospero and saw that the stock market was going up while net options for the SPY was at 0 for like a couple months were probably like, well, what's going on here? Now it's a lot more clear with everything that's kind of under the hood, and we're just starting to see some of it bubble to the surface, and there's a lot more still um, that could drag on markets going forward. Let's see, we got some new chats. On a good note, the number of conscientious objectives in the military is higher than even the Vietnam War. Okay. And then JC, immigration and economy have already started to shift the middle away from Trump. It's always bounced back, but ground war would be too much to overcome, especially in the midterms. What do you think? Is our coverage about this topic satisfactory for today? We're 43 minutes into the stream now.
I don't even really want to talk about it. It's just like a night. It's like a waking nightmare that we're all in now.
Unfortunately, it probably won't be over, and we'll be covering it more on the streams. But
I
for
hope I'm
today, I
wrong.
think that was pretty good.
I hope I'm wrong, and we're really like doing this, but yeah.
All right, from NW about Amazon. Amazon is pulling USPS shipping. The active tanking of U.S. mail in conjunction with SAVE Act is on attack on. Oh, it's the same. I thought we were spinning to Amazon more, but kind of back into politics. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on for this. I want to bring up the Discord questions right away because we missed them on last stream. So we'll bring these up first. So we definitely get to them today. We had one about the trade alerts now that they're in early access, wondering when there'll be a full release.
So one of the things that we're considering doing, and I think we might, is like as it wears off, I think we might allow people to just subscribe to like a Patreon or something um as the trials wear off. Because we just want to release Prospero. Like there was such a positive desire for Prospero Plus um during the product summit that we're just going to release it all together. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to have Prospero Plus be like a standalone $10 a month product, and then alerts be a standalone $50 a month product, but it gets Prospero Plus too.
All right, so good follow-up for those that were wondering. Then we had a question about Booking stock, which is going to be going through a 25-to-1 stock split in April. How do you feel about not just Booking, but overall companies that are going to have a stock split? Would you prefer to buy into them and maybe sell before, or hold through it, or wait till after the stock split? And then Booking specifically, any thoughts about them?
I mean, I think Booking is interesting. Like we always see it like really solid, and I think we've talked about this for whatever reason, even with fractional shares. Um, a lot of retail investors shy away from like um, large ticket stocks. So I think it's a great idea. I think Bitcoin could be a way more popular because like people like stocks that they know and products that they use. So I think it could be huge. It could be a great thing to buy before the split.
So I'm wondering if this headline news story caught your attention at the end of last week about Supermicro. Did you hear anything about it?
Oh yeah, I did.
That's, I mean, just when you thought it couldn't get crazier for this company, the co-founder was arrested for smuggling about 2.5 billion of NVIDIA GPUs into China. The lengths at which he went to carry out this was crazy. I mean, there was one part of the story where they said that he was caught on camera using a hairdryer to swap serial numbers. He's facing up to 30 years in federal prison. SMCI stock was down 30% on Friday. It was interesting when we checked them out in the beginning of the stream. I think they were up 6%. Let me pull them back up and see how they're doing now. Yeah, they're up over 6%, but it's got to be hard to believe that that company will ever have success again after this, right? Like,
It's
it's
kind of
just
crazy. It's kind of crazy that like I mean, oh my God, I have so many things to say about this. The first is that it's kind of crazy that he is like personally doing that himself, right? Like you couldn't have some like trusted like bodyguard or someone like doing that part of it. Like the CEO himself is going to be swapping like the serial numbers. To me, that's the craziest part of it. That you don't even have like co-conspirators or you don't even have like people to do your dirty work. It kind of reminds me of the funny story when like Michael Vick like got caught. Like he had like all his like entourage with him and he got caught like having like weed on a plane, and that was around the time that like he was like I think he like gave someone an STD with the alias Ron Mexico. Like to me, it's equivalent levels of stupid there, where it's just like what like because if someone else gets caught or even like your bodyguard or like someone that works for you, you can just be like, oh my God, like even if you're there in China with them, you can just still be like, I have no idea. Like to do it yourself as the CEO is just like mind-numbingly stupid. I mean, the whole thing is stupid. But thing two that I think is very interesting about that is was all that like accounting stuff? Like I didn't dig into the accounting stuff too much, but were all those accounting discrepancies essentially him laundering the money back through the company that he got? Like, because I'm not sure you could just like personally deposit. I mean, maybe they deposited Bitcoin into like a personal account for him. Um, but that would be funny in addition if he was doing this and then trying to launder it through the company. And that's actually the first way that he got discovered. Um, but yeah, like when you think about like, and then you just hear about like, you hear about like all of these countries. Um, I think you hear about, I forgot. Um, I think it's like maybe India. You hear about these countries that like are acting as conduits for China to get chips, right? And it's just like, okay, couldn't you just like find one of those countries, cut them in, like minimize your risk? It's amazing how much risk people take on sometimes. And he's already the CEO of a public company. It's just like, it's insane. I mean, actually, the only thing that I can think of is that, China had him on something else. And like, it's one of those things where they just blackmail you and they just get you like deeper and deeper into the hole.
So, but like, what about SMCI, the company going forward? And also, Nvidia has to know that like some of these buyers of their chips are sending them straight to China, right? Like, and obviously Nvidia would never say that, or but like, when you're talking about plausible deniability, their hands are clear in all of this, but where there's smoke, there's fire. They gotta know, right?
I mean, I'm sure Jensen Huang is smart enough not to get anywhere near this. So if you're talking about Nvidia, like he might have like I'm not even sure, he might have someone tell someone else who tells him, right? Like the Godfather. But there's also just they're selling so many of these chips. I don't think like, and how many are they selling to Super Micro, right? They don't like, Super Micro probably has like an ability to buy like an insane amount, and I don't think Nvidia is sitting there being like, well, where are these all gonna go? Like, who's the vent? Like, I think they very easily could have had no idea. I mean, if you think of the amount of chips that Nvidia is selling, they very easily could have no idea. Um, but I'm also just like so confused. Like, they built these like server racks and cooling systems. Like, couldn't they just send them over in those and say that they had different chips in there? Like, how closely is like a huge like cooling system being shipped, like taken apart and shipping? I mean, I don't know. It's just, more stupidity, more.
Seems quite messy. Another messy area of the market right now is a lot of the food companies, especially ones that are like snack brands or fast food or anything like this, with the GLP-1 effect going on. There was some stats that came out from JP Morgan. Right now, from a survey, 21% fewer calories being consumed by USA citizens. They expect that 30 to 55 billion worth of annual sales for the food and beverage industry will be zapped away as soon as 2030 because of GLP-1 effect, which 1 in every 8 American is on now. Now, Wendy's, speaking of like the market perma hedge, I feel like Wendy's has been like a perma bear. When you look at their signals, they've been terrible. The stock has done terrible. Another food company that really caught my eye was like Jack in the Box, because they're down over 90% past 5 years, like 40+% year to date. Would you avoid any kind of food company that's not like health focused, like any kind of, snack brand, fast food, anything like that? Would McDonald's fit that picture?
Oh
What do you
yeah,
think?
definitely. Because like one of the things, for those that don't know the history here, like one of the things that McDonald's pioneered, that I'm sure they all do, I don't know the extent, is like when you eat a McDonald's French fry, like you're you're actually not necessarily thinking like this is delicious in the same way that like in a nice restaurant. They actually have chemicals in that food that like actually like produce like dopamine responses. So you actually just think you're having a good time there or whatever, but it's not because the food is good. Like it's very, if you like taking the bite, like if you taken a bite of like some, exquisite cuisine, that is lighting up different parts of your brain. But also like a pleasure response. But this is just kind of like a cheap thrill that they figured out how to engineer. And I have to wonder, all of this stuff and the way it talks about like impulse control, like I have to wonder if whatever those chemicals are doing to your brain, or have done, and the place that they live in your brain, about the relationship with that food. They talk about like impulse control with these things. And I have to think that the power of that is being negated. Like, that's what I've been like thinking about with these GLP ones. And like 1 in 8 people being on them is crazy. And they're kind of a miracle drug, right? Because it's not just like weight loss, like impulse control. It lowers your risk of heart attack, stroke, like all this stuff. But the other side to it that's kind of crazy is if you ever go off of it, apparently you lose the benefits. Like, it actually comes right back, and it actually elevates your risk of like heart attack and stroke, because your body becomes kind of dependent on that. So it's kind of like, it kind of makes you wonder, if this stuff is just kind of here to stay, and it'll be easier and easier to get like, because if you think about all the things that it does, right? Where it's just like, okay, where you talk about like, maybe you lose some weight and you go off it. But if you're just like, damn, like all of these, you get all of these benefits for taking it, like, especially if you think of the cost of the, medical industrial complex, like, unless there's other side effects that emerge. I mean, I think nausea is like the biggest one, but we also have not like experienced taking these for a long time, and you never know the impact. But to me, it seems like something that like insurance should start covering. I mean, of course, part of what the health industry wants is to keep you sick. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to say that we shouldn't have a lot of people on it, because it would lower the cost of medicine to society. So, like, I don't know if that's the direction it's going, but in my opinion, it kind of should. And like, unless we like, there's the caveat that we might not know. Um, ugh, already? Like, how quickly does it ruin your gallbladder? That seems quick.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's going to be longer term side effects, since this, like you were saying, it's kind of a newer thing that people have been using the past couple of years.
I'm asking Claude.
Actually, the thing you said though makes me more skeptical about it, of how like if you come off of it, your body kind of reacts like negative instantly. Like, I wouldn't want to be dependent on something the rest of my life if that was going to be the case. If I knew when like I was coming off of it, like it would, all the benefits would go away. I don't know. I know a lot of people like to just put a band-aid on the health stuff though. So if it's easier, people will do it for sure.
That might be a little overrated, NW. Um, mm, so there's um translate so 27 additional events per 10,000 patients per year. The absolute risk of developing gallstones is generally considered very low, around 0.8%. I don't see by year 3 risk of gallstones, bile duct stones all become significantly elevated. Yeah, so I mean, that's a good. It seems like you're right. Maybe if you're on it for 3, 4, 5 years. Um. Oh, 70 pounds. Yeah, that seems to be like a big change in bile production. That makes sense. Um. But yeah, that kind of blows up the you should be on it forever. but like that's kind of the funny thing away how the medical system works. It's probably like you'll take your GLP-1, your gallbladder medicine at the same time.
Yeah, combo it all. Um, Another story I wanted to bring up was this one that Senators Adam Schiff and John Curtis are introducing a bill to ban sports betting and casino style contracts on the platforms like Kalshi, Polymarkets, all these prediction markets. And it was causing the DraftKings, the FanDuels, which is Flutter Entertainment, Penn Gaming, to rally off this news. Do you think there will be any follow through? I've been wondering about this for a while because I know like the gambling industry has a lot of pull, has a lot of sway. It's a massive industry, and they've been losing out to these prediction markets, just stealing businesses. So, do you think this bill has a shot at passing, and how would it affect the momentum we're seeing in the prediction markets? And then maybe would you be buy the dipping on like the DraftKings and the gaming stocks if it went through?
I think the prediction markets are like one of the more horrible things that I've seen develop. Like it's such a racket in terms of how many people win. Like the bets are not the bets are really, really geared towards the house. We talked about this before because especially if there's like tons of outcomes, you have people betting on all these different outcomes. Like the likelihood of you taking in big profits, it's huge. But I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I mean, the Trump administration seems pretty in bed with these prediction markets. So, like, I think even if it goes, I'm not sure it gets like even if it passes the House and the Senate, which I don't think it would. I don't see it passing. But it's horrible. Like, and it's horrible because of what I said, where everybody loses. And but the other side to it is like seemingly the people that win a lot of the times are winning because they have information that other people don't. And that's like horrific. And again, I just don't understand why so many people that have a problem with inequality, with unfairness, participate in these systems that propagate it.
Yeah, and JC is talking about maybe even political events being banned on the markets and government actions.
That would be good. Again, I don't really see that happening.
I saw one story like you were talking about how people can rig them. I think it was Logan Paul was selling like a Pokemon card for, well, nobody knew how much it was going to go for, but like an unmarked or unnamed wallet was betting that it would sell for like over 5 million, and then it wound up selling for 10 million, but the wallet and the bets made back all the money. So there was for sure like some kind of inside thing going on where they're like, all right, we'll make all the money back that we're spending extra on buying the card, and it's just so shady what's going on. So I kind of hope there is some follow through with this and something, um,
Yeah,
at least regulation.
it's like for all the people that complain about the stock market, like it's the same thing with like crypto and how deregulated it is. And they're all like, oh, the stock market's rigged. And then they move into these, and they're not wrong about it being unfair, right? But crypto is more rigged, and these prediction markets are even more rigged. So they complain about this one system, and then they just move into these even more rigged system as a result of those complaints. And I just like I feel like all we're talking about today is stupidity. It's the day of stupidity.
Well, let's see if you think the people that the next people we're going to talk about are stupid too or not. Maybe you were one of these people yourself, because U.S. vinyl sales topped 1 billion last year for the first time since 1983. So, George, did you buy a vinyl last year? And then, but I was really bringing up this story to kind of highlight. I was bringing up recently how people are sort of seeming less interested with AI, and maybe this is a sign that people are shifting their tendencies back to physical products, old time products, maybe because of that. But how do you feel about seeing vinyl sales increasing, hitting a 40-year high?
I mean, I wonder what that's about. Um, Trying to think, is there some like rock and roll anniversary or something? I mean, I don't know. Does it mean that like hipsters are becoming more powerful?
I think it could show you that everything is cyclical. Like everything, I feel like has some kind of pattern of. cyclical nature to it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just a reaction um to uh like how we're getting like so like Spotify like single serving things, and it's just like um people want to like go back to it. I was watching, for any like rock and roll fans, I was watching the Led Zeppelin documentary, and it's really really amazing, especially especially like I've been a fan of Led Zeppelin for a long time, but there hasn't been any great info. Like there's here and there, and like it's one of the only times I've ever really seen like this like unreleased footage of like John Bonham. And what was really interesting about them is like I didn't really know the extent they were kind of like a super group, or like how like famous like Jimmy Page was before they got together. I kind of knew that they were all really talented, but I didn't really know like their histories before the band as well as I did when I watched this. What was really cool is like Jimmy Page was like definitely the most famous one, but actually like John Paul Jones after him was like the bassist. But because they so instead of like going to they actually do what like they actually did what like a lot of like Netflix studios and things do now. They recorded their whole album, Led Zeppelin 1. And they knew it was amazing, or it was just called Led Zeppelin. Um, and they knew it was amazing. And then they went to like the biggest record studio and they said, you know, these are our terms. And they got them all. And like one of the things that, Jimmy Page really wanted was he said he didn't want to do a single, right? He wanted to force people to listen to his whole album. And I'm thinking for like music fans and like I like that's my working theory. For people that are tired of this like single serving stuff, I think the idea of being a fan of music and sitting down and just listening to a record in order. And that's the thing. You can't, it's kind of hard to skip around songs on a record. You sit down, you put a record on, way easier to just put it in. Yeah, and I mean, I think they did. I don't think they really do anymore. I mean, I think Taylor Swift is probably one of the only people still thinking about that. I mean, she's also one of the only people still like, fully producing and writing her own music. But yeah, now like people just are just like throwing songs together. I don't think they really care. Like, there's some real artists, but I actually have talked a lot about this with friends. Like, I actually think that the the music industrial complex kind of forces you to compromise in ways that you lose your artistic integrity along the way.
I could definitely see that, especially if you want to be like in the industry versus like kind of carving your own path. Which is a lot harder. Um, but yeah, also with your point like of the artistry of it, like in the picking of the song order, there is such a difference between like true artists and then just kind of like industry people, performers. Like they're not the same, and there's this definitely separation in terms of people making music today, and even all art forms really. Maverick said, "Thank you, thanks to you. I'm much obliged. LZ, it's time to ramble on." Is that a quote from a Led
It
Zeppelin?
is. And so the songs ramble on.
I have one more
I could
topic.
have told you the song if you didn't.
So you're a big Led Zeppelin guy?
Yeah, huge.
Okay. Okay, interesting. I'm not so much into that classic rock, but maybe I'll have to fill myself in on it.
Song, nighttime, crank, like, babe, I'm gonna leave you as high as it goes. It's one of
I
my
love it.
favorite songs of all time. Yeah,
Uh,
just crank it up.
mhm.
I started to do that like I started to do that as one of my karaoke songs recently. I didn't think I could pull it off, but I can now.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, we got to post the footage of something of that on the Prospero YouTube channel.
It's a
George
difficult
likes to
song.
get the let out.
No, I mean I don't know. I think that's for the private collection.
All right, one more topic. I want to bring up the worst performing stock in the S&P 500 so far year to date. back to stocks here as we finish it out. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat before we go. Wednesday's live stream is on. It'll be at 3 p.m. as well, JC. So normal schedule this week. Like up the stream before we head on out of here in just a few minutes. George, any guesses? I sent this to you, but it was way down, so maybe you didn't even see it. Any guesses on the worst S&P 500? If it wasn't, if
I
you're not,
saw.
you saw. Okay, so does it surprise you the fact that Robinhood is the worst performing stock in the S&P 500 in 2026?
No, because like look at the components that we always talked about in Robinhood. Right? We always talked about the crypto angle, right? That's doing badly, like it moved with crypto. And then the other angle was like market bullishness, right? So like it moved on both those things, and both those things have taken a big hit. So it makes sense, right? Crypto just goes down for crypto, right? These market related stocks just go down for the market, but it's got some like accelerating effects, you know?
Do you think that prediction market story affects them at all? Is that one of the higher growth areas for them in the future, or not so much for them?
Yeah, it's probably another one that
Mm-hmm.
like adds to the uncertainty.
Is
God,
BB?
they're really just like the slumlords of investing. They're
Oh,
like
did you see?
whatever shitty thing you want, we'll get you.
Did you see the recent commercial? I forget which platform did it, but it was a complete shot at Robinhood. It was like uh, an investor meeting with like a brokerage person, and they were selling them like this investment package, and then they turned also into their bookie in the same meeting, and it was like a shot at Robinhood of how they're trying to get people from investing to gambling like instantly.
I actually don't think they're slumlords. I think they're drug dealers. That's like I like that analogy better for them because they're just like they're trying to get you like, oh yeah, come, invest in stocks, but like, what about options? We'll make it really easy for you. How about you do the night market where where liquidity is a huge problem for you and you could be on the other end. And now like um these betting markets.
And W said, I read a few places that users in Robinhood who are on margin but negative, their account is closed and they never have to repay. That can't be accurate, right?
Um, no, I don't think they'd close their account. I think they might prevent them from trading until they put in the proper margin requirements. Um, because it doesn't make sense, right? They want them to come back, but I don't think close, but I could think them like not being allowed to trade.
Yeah, that is interesting. So if they never, I actually didn't even think about this before. If you go like negative in an account, who is responsible if you like don't ever pay it back?
Still you.
It's still
Like
you, so it's
that's
just
what they have
lingering.
no reason to close your account if you owe them money.
Hmm. I hope so, because that would be wild, said NW. Merrick said still up 96% on Hood. And maybe it'll be one of our dumpster diving stocks on Wednesday.
We can ask Claude.
This has to be a super rare like edge case that people are going negative on margin, right?
I think a lot of people could go negative on margin, but okay. Robinhood doesn't automatically close your account just for having a negative margin, but consequences like immediate response, margin call. If your portfolio value decreases below your total maintenance requirement, you'll receive a margin call. You can resolve it by depositing additional funds, initiating account transfer, closing provision. If you don't resolve it, force liquidation. Unresolved deficits may involve Robinhood liquidating some or all of your positions. Robinhood could sell your securities without your prior approval. If the deficit persists after liquidation, failing to address a negative balance could lead to legal collection efforts to credit agencies. There you go.
Does that mean like if you owned a house, they could like come for your house to pay your margin?
Yeah, they could send a debt collector after you and hit your
Wow,
credit score.
that's crazy.
Um, Robinhood doesn't typically close the account solely due to a margin call, but unresolved negative balances can stall transfers and put your account in bad standing. Any margin balances need to be settled before. Yeah, so it's like what I said.
And W said, "Ooh, Redditors are wrong, unsurprisingly."
Yeah, that's like a losing. Like they would never do that. Like yes, them taking you, like them putting you to a creditor makes complete sense.
Mavericks bring up Build-A-Bear. We covered Build-A-Bear when they were soaring. I guess they pulled back a lot. We'll have to bring them up on Wednesday. Follow up on Build-A-Bear stock. Maybe post-holiday doldrums. Um,
Like I didn't have us talking about Build-A-Bear a bunch on this live stream in my bingo cards.
hey, back when they were soaring, they looked good in our signals. So we'll see. We'll see how they're doing on Wednesday. Maybe follow up on them. But
Like my
last
dream is
call for
for these
comments.
like is if the rest of the economy fails, that Build-A-Bear still does well.
Hey, you know
It's
how
our
people can rally
wartime
around
stock.
GameStop, AMC, maybe Build-A-Bear's next.
Oh, I saw, by the way, I didn't send it to you because like Lord knows I like we don't need more shorts on this. But AMC is down 99.6% from its peak.
I'm clipping that. Wondering
Explanation of Build-A-Bear? What do you want, Dr. Carter?
which stock. What's up, Matt? How you doing? Good to see you. Let's see. Let's see if we have a follow-up.
What's Dr. Carter's tip of the week?
George, did you see a celebrity had a baby and named them Prospero?
Oh,
Let me scroll all the way back in the comments. It was Cat Graham, am I remembering correctly? Yeah, Cat Graham from Vampire Diaries.
I'm suing her.
I thought we were going to partner with her. You go to suing.
No, it's an act of aggression. Trying to make a more famous Prospero.
Mhm.
Um, oh yeah. Matt is of course referring to um Matt is of course referring to questions he's been asking me one on one, which of course I'm supposed to understand, I guess. But okay. Um So yeah, some of these ones that he's pointed out are very interesting, like the difference between like IYR and QQQ, QQQM and QQQ. I think those were some of the ones that he asked about. And so, how's IYR looking today? I don't have my phone. Um, well, Prospero was a soothsayer in the Tempest that was a boy, or a man. That's one of the meanings of the that's dual meaning. It's prosperity and then the soothsayer, Shakespearean soothsayer. So yeah, so the issue with some of these, and it's actually very interesting, and I think a good reason to look at all these things, and in retrospect with the new ETF. So like QQQM and QQQ are going to have a different flavor, just because, like we talk about, people hedge with QQQ and SPY, right? So if you want to speculate, have lower volumes, things like that, like one of the things, like we explained, like one of the things is just pricing, and I imagine the pricing might look similar for some of these like QQQ and QQQM, but some of it is the raw dollars on the put side below versus the call side above, right? So in that case, SPY and QQQ are going to rank incredibly high in that scale because of the extent the dollars are on the put side, and the dollars on the put side for QQQM are not going to be anywhere close to that. Like the IYR thing is interesting. I'd have to dig into that more, but I would assume part of that is just like very, like we can look at an options chain for IYR. Anyone know what IYR is right now?
I got it up in Prospero. Is that what you're looking for? The signals?
Wait, IPR maybe? I think you said IYR, right, Matt? I think I responded to Matt here. I'd have to find my phone. Hold on, it's got to be somewhere around here. Matt?
Oh, the stomach. SOXX stocks jumped from 3 net option sentiment to 51.
Where is my phone?
It looks very volatile in the time series graph for SOXX. Oh, IYW. Currently an 81 net option sentiment.
Did we find out? I can look now.
IYW.
IYW, okay. So lower, right? Today. Yeah, 81. So yeah, the thing about it actually opened at 55. Yeah, so like my guess is like it's a very thinly traded it's a very thinly traded option or more thinly traded option, right? And we see these with individual stocks sometimes. So yeah, like obviously it's going to take a lot more to move the QQQ, but if especially if the volumes aren't as high as these in the raw open interest dollars, you're going to see the pricing of them move a lot faster. And the problem with that is the same thing like that we talk about sometimes. If you're looking at IYW as an indication, right? And it was at 99 on Friday and opened at 55 today. Like that tells you probably how much small changes in things like the volumes or the price skew, or even it could just be the price of a few different options contracts. I was going to see how many, like how deep the options chain was. I don't imagine very deep, but we'll take a look. Let's take a look at this options chain. It never hurts to look. Like, yeah, we got some pretty wide spreads. We only have three. We have April 17th, 2026, June, and September, right? So yeah, we're definitely not looking at a very deep options chain. Oh yeah, and like look at this. The max volume is the 205, and that's 62 and a 3919 open interest, right? So like let's just compare that to the QQQ for a second and the most recent expiration. I mean, the QQQ has a ton more. Like if you just look at it's crazy. Like you compare that 39, the max volume was 62. The max volume on QQQ is 143. There's a 143,000, 125,000, 107,000. Open interest 11,000, right? 733. There's another one 997, right? That's how there could be so much sensitivity, right? That one popular option trading 62 contracts, right? If the spreads change on that, if there's one like trade to one side or the other, like that's going to move it a lot. So it makes sense.
So they're just going to be much more volatile. The ETFs that have lower volumes, it sounds like.
I don't know, Matt, you tell me. Like But what I would say is it's the same thing I say in stocks, right? What do I say in stocks when we see that kind of like volatility pattern, right? That it's a hard indication for me one way or the other because it moves too much, right? So I'm sharing, like, actually, if you looked at XLI in the most recent newsletter, I should have pointed to it more, but I was traveling and I didn't even see this. But XLI was a good indicator of the downswing. If you go look in the Sunday letter, like here, I can pull it up because I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I wish I was like, this is the problem with me traveling, but at least thank God for Brent and Matt who are helping me more. Matt could help more on the daily picks, but Brent has been a godsend. But let's just show this for a second. Like, I'm always sharing the ones that I think are the most useful, right? And this, right? This, check out this XLI, right? We had it moving down prior to this price move down. I mean, this was kind of a co-movement, but then that we had this dip before this dip. Even this one, you can see a small dip before that. And then you actually saw it break up before this move up.
Mm-hmm.
So XLI has been looking XLI looks like the ETF to look at right now. I mean, I don't know where XLK is today. Let's take a look. But I would say XLK, it's at 28, right? I think that's been useful in a different way, right? Because it's, signaling like it staying low was signaling, bullishness, and it's signaling more bearishness today. I mean, was signaling bearishness and it's signaling more bullishness today.
It is interesting how we're having to look outside of the SPY and QQQ because of like how permanently hedged they seem to be, to find a better accurate source of like maybe even like less so long term, but more like daily movements or weekly movements in the markets.
Yeah.
Well, any more questions, chat?
No, and I gotta go, but this was you got a long one out of me, even though I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, that was a good stream today. All right, so appreciate you, George. Thank you everybody for watching. Back Wednesday, 3 p.m. And let's see if we have a couple more green days before then. All right, have a great day, everybody. See you on Wednesday.